Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Talk Kashrus. Today we are joined by Rabbi Sholem Fishbane, Kashrus Administrator of the Chicago Rabbinical Council and Executive Director of ACO, the Association of Kashrus Organizations. Thank you so much, Rabbi Fishbane. It's wonderful sitting with you again.
My pleasure.
So we're here today to talk about a very relevant topic, buying poultry in a store. Now, typically when people buy poultry in a store, they buy chicken, it comes with a hashgacha, it's nicely wrapped. We all assume that we could rely on it as long as it's a reputable hechsher.
100%.
No problem. What we're here today to discuss is what happens when the consumer brings it home and is preparing the chicken and they notice an abnormality. They notice something either off color or something like that. When should they be concerned and what should they do about it?
Great question, and it's a very important introduction that you made. When you buy something with a hechsher, you're good to go. You don't have to worry. Everything is fine. The hashgacha takes responsibility. What happens though, in a shlachtas where they prepare the chicken, there's first of all thousands of chickens going by, and they have the right people looking at them, but they don't have x-ray. They can't see within the chicken. So they're looking on the outside, they see everything's fine, they let it pass, it's kosher, everything's good to go. But you, the consumer that's cleaning the chicken, you're opening it up, and now you're getting to a spot that the people in the plant aren't seeing. That's where the shiloh comes. So I'm stressing that it left kosher and it has a cheskes kashrus. But now that you see something, the halacha is you have to check into it. So here's the general rule, and maybe we'll show a little samples today. The general rule is like this. When a bone is broken before shechita, the animal's not kosher. If it happens after shechita, which is very common, it's flapping around, they're hanging it up on the hooks, it could happen, it's pretty common, it's kosher. It's already geshachten, it's 100% kosher. So how do you know if the bone broke before the shechita or after the shechita? The way to know is by the coloration. The color and the amount of dam. Think about when a person gets hit and they get a black and blue mark, right? They're alive, the oxygen, it's spreading, the black and blue. That's exactly what happens when the bone breaks before the shechita. So if you see a broken bone and a lot of black and blue and really dark color, that's a pretty big sign that it may not be kosher, and then you bring it to a rav. If you just see it's broken, but it's red around, it's not so much, you could actually open it up. It's a good sign that it happened after shechita. So with your permission, maybe I'd like to show a couple of samples.
Sure, I would love to see.
I'm going to put on my gloves, if that's okay. And the first thing I'm going to show is an actual chicken that was taken off the line. The bone was broken beforehand, and you'll see the bone, and I want to show you the color. This is actually the whole chicken, because they caught it in the factory. Okay, here we go.
When you say they caught it, the Rabbi Machshir pulled it off the line.
Yeah, right. You see this bone? This got cracked before the shechita. It could happen when they were trying to catch the chicken, when they took it out of the crate, whatever it is, and you can see the color, the dam, the blood spread. Look at this black and blue. If you see a broken bone with something like this, it's a real shiloh. Now, many times you only see it sometimes over here. This happens to have bled all the way through. But a broken bone with this type of color around it, pull it off the side and show it to a rav. Now I want to show you some very common, let's see, these are some chicken legs or whatnot, where it was broken. You see a broken bone. Look at the color. It's nice.
Color, healthy
color. Maybe a little red here, a little red there, but there's nothing in here. And now if you do see you feel a broken bone, you open it up and you look inside, and if you don't see anything crazy, anything really black and blue, you're good to go. And all of these are 100% kosher, okay?
Got it.
Now, let's get to something somewhere in between, and I want to introduce a new halacha, where the chicken can be kosher, but you, the consumer, still has to do one more thing to make it 100% kosher to eat, okay? So here you have chicken That's pretty typical. You're cleaning it, and you're coming across, here's a broken bone, okay? And you see how there's dam around here. The color's still fine. But you know what you need to do still? You need to take out the dam because it's congealed. Congealed dam, even though there was a malich on it, the malicha is when everything is regular. But congealed dam, the malicha didn't do 100% of the job. So your job now, before you serve it to your family, is to take off this dam. Here's a great shot of what's called bloodshot. This is called bloodshot meat. Again, the bone cracked. This was after the shechita because of the color. But these little shticklich, this bloodshot has to be removed before one's allowed to consume it. Here's another example. You see this coloring? Okay, the chicken is kosher based on the fact that there's no broken bone here, but something got bruised here. And that means the malicha, didn't finish the job, so the consumer has to cut out this black and blue in order for it to be consumed. So kosher chicken, but you still need to do one more thing in order to serve it to the consumers.
Okay, well, it's fascinating to be able to see it in real life. I'm not sure I'd be confident enough to be able to distinguish between, one another. But I guess, and I guess with the more you do it, the more familiar you become with the different shades and things of that sort. Now, what happens if you find a problematic chicken, you bring it to the Rav, and the Rav says that it's taco problem, you have to throw it out. Now, you go back home, and on your tray in your kitchen, you have several other pieces of chicken from the same package.
Great question.
Is that a problem? Are those a problem?
Great question. So the answer is, believe it or not, that the very first time when you buy a tray of, let's say, a couple of bottoms and pulkies and whatnot, the first time those guys met was on that tray. Okay?
Really?
Really. Because what
So they're not all from the same chicken?
Not all from the same chicken. Absolutely not. The Schlachthaus has a processing room, and they cut up all the chickens, and they make piles of bottoms and whatnot, and all the various parts, and then they assemble it together, and they weigh it, and they give it to you. So 100% okay. If you find a problem, if the Rav says that this particular is no good, everything else is okay. The exception would be, it's like that first chicken that was one big piece.
It's one whole chicken.
One whole. Then, of course, you need to... and you remember the days when they would have liver in the bags?
Yeah.
So even in that case, let's say the chicken would be no good, but the liver in the bag also, it wasn't necessarily...
Wasn't from the same fowl.
But those were the old days, you know. So, and there's one other thing I want to tell you is very, very common, and that's what's called red legs, or roiza fiselich. Very, very common on the bottom, on the top of the pulki. Many times it's just red. What is that? Don't worry about it. Even though it's a little discolored, that usually comes from when they hang it on the hooks, and it just gives a little bit of a kvetch, and that usually is what's causes roiza fiselich.
So that's not congealed blood, and that's also not a siman of a broken bone either.
Perfect, that's right. It's not congealed blood, and it's also not. It's only that nice clumpy, the bloodshot is where we get concerned.
Okay. Thank you, Rabbi Fishbane. That was very enlightening. I'll definitely have a whole different attitude when I go to the meat department now, and I'll start inspecting the packages that I bring home to my wife. So thank you so much.
My pleasure.
And we look forward to speaking to you again.
My pleasure. Thank you.